Today we have an Ultramarine. This is, hang on, I gotta read this one. Invictarus Suzerain Squad, Suzerain 5. Joytoy sent this out to me. Their toys so far have been incredible. Every single time I've opened one of their boxes, it is a literal joy. So will this Ultramarine continue that tradition? I certainly hope so. Let's get to it. And here he is out of the packaging. You can already tell a good toy once you take it out of the packaging. And I can tell that this is already a good toy. Getting a quick once over of this figure, you'll notice immediate just attention to detail. There is some really solid, illustrious gold paint being used for the figure. There's weathering, there's washes, there's dry brushing. There are lots of different applications that bring this toy to life. Warhammer, the tabletop game, is notorious for having some amazing painters behind some of their figures. This is already done for you. It's gonna save you a ton of time. So when you're considering the price of this thing, just factor in some of the time cost that comes with this, because while these typically are a little more expensive of a figure, considering we are at about the 1/18th scale, the premium price you're paying for a figure like this is going to those elements of detail, as well as some of the accessories, which I think we need to talk about now. And we have the jetpack backpack. This is something that I'm going to put on right now because I think it completes the look of the figure, even if we don't have any of the other weapon accessories. Hopefully he doesn't fall in my hands when we do this. Let's see how secure of a connection it is. It is a 2-peg system. There is a lot of friction going on there. I feel like that is a very secure connection, and it gives us a really great look at a completed version of this Ultramarine. Have our machine gun bolter style weapon here. And hilariously, this is the most boring accessory out of the whole bunch, which is kind of strange because if we were talking about some other figures that I take a look at, having this much detail on a weapon would be the exciting part. Here we have the giant axe that comes with it. This one is probably the most exciting to me because not only do we get these elements of gunmetal and sharpened steel, also the gold coming through, there's a leather style color wrap around the handle. We have these jewel tones, these metallic blue jewel tones on the face of the axe. That is just a good looking axe. I love the detail on this. One of the standout accessories of this whole thing is this big giant shield. There is just so much plastic here, and it is roughly the same height as the figure himself. We have that same really amazing gold color, and the sword that sits in the middle of the shield has weathering down it, so it looks unique. It looks visually interesting. It isn't a flat piece at all. And then when we have the text on the back of the shield, there is a wash over it. So what we get is those letters popping out. They aren't just like background noise, they are background detail. And if I would have said the front of the shield was enough, that would have been incredible for this, but they also extended the details to the backside of the shield, which is a part of the shield you don't typically see. There is a wash over it, there is some dry brushing on the brace, so when you put it over the hand, it's just so well done. And we also get a selection of fists. We get closed fists, we get open fists to hold the axe, we also have trigger fists so that you can hold the gun. It can swap in between the two very well, right-handed, left-handed, it doesn't matter, it is up to you. And the wrists sit on dumbbell joints. So there is a dumbbell that goes into the forearm, and then the dumbbell also extends to the hand. It is a little different system than I'm personally used to. And swapping the hands in between each other can be a little difficult if the dumbbell is a little off kilter, but just wiggling it on the hand seems to have been like the key for me to get this working the way that I want it to. Now we gotta take a look at everything that was in the box. Let's just start posing him up. The articulation on this guy, in Ultramarine no less, is insane. You wouldn't think that you would have this range of motion in such chunky armor. It almost defies the laws of physics, but here we go. Look at that. He could be a limbo star if you really wanted to, and you can crunch him forward. There is just so much range here. The pauldrons sitting on his shoulders do limit things a little bit. I cannot get a good raise of the arm, but if that is the price I have to pay for all of the other articulation, I think that is an acceptable bargain to make. The front of this figure is a visual feast for the eyes, and when you turn him around, while there isn't the amount of detail that you see on the front, there is still quite a bit of detail. We have these utility accessories that sit on his belt. They look like they're on a ball joint, so you could remove them if you wanted to, but they do look good. It does give you something to look at at if the character is facing behind. When you have the backpack on, you get that detailing as well. This whole belt floats on this character, and it floats at a really good spot because if you move the legs and if you kick them around, it seems to go with the flow. It is a very soft plastic, and it doesn't necessarily impede the movement of the character too terribly much, considering we have such a chunky Ultramarine figure to contend with. I think what really helps is having the torso on such a movable ball joint here that we get a great sense of range of motion that if it wasn't there, if it was more stilted, I feel like this belt might have seemed like a limiting factor when, in all honesty, it's just how well the joints work all over this Ultramarine. The last bit of detail is the head moves around pretty great. The upward movement, the upward looking, you kind of have to bend his back, arching it that way, because we have a stopper here with this collar. I think we've taken a look at all the accessories in the box, seeing how extraordinarily well this heavily armored figure moves. The articulation on this blows out of the water. Most of the figures standing on that shelf right over there. So let's talk about the things that I like, the things that I don't like, and my overall thoughts. So I hope it was pretty evident as we were taking a look at the character, the things that I do like. One, namely the articulation. This is a fantastic action figure. You get a sense of action with this Ultramarine. The second thing that I really love about it is the attention to detail. So not only do we have the function of the toy looking really good, we also have the form of the toy looking even better. It's using really rich gold tones. It's using very heavy, dark gunmetals. And it has the Ultramarine signature look that carries well because of all of the washes and the dry brushing that go on the accessories, that go in the cracks and crevices of this character's armor, so that the details pop, so that the rivets pop. Well, not pop out, but just like visually pop. And the accessory set to complement is just the wow factor on top of it. I think if we had just the figure without any of the accessories, I guess minus the backpack and probably the bolter, it still would have been a fantastic figure, but we got this big giant axe, we got this big giant shield. I wish I knew more about the Warhammer 40k lore, because I'm guessing there is some rich and deep connections to be made with this figure. And in terms of things that I don't like, I could see an argument being made that the price of these doesn't necessarily match what you're getting. However, I would argue that these are in fact a really good value, especially if you're looking at the Warhammer universe and knowing that if you get just a blank miniature, then you're investing in time, paints, and skill to get it looking as half decent as we have with our figure. The skill to paint something like this doesn't happen overnight. You have to work at it over the course of years, and here it's just already made. So I don't think that criticism holds up, but the one thing that I will say that I wish was just slightly different is the ability for the character to look up. The way that the neck brace on the back of his neck works means that he can't look up. Everything else, all things considered, that is my one tiny minor complaint when it comes to this Ultramarine. The other thing that I probably would have liked to have seen changed is having these pauldrons be able to kick out the arms up just a little bit more. It does feel slightly limiting, but I don't know how many shoulder days you need to do to like have these big giant golden pauldrons be able to be lifted up. But it seems like in terms of thinking about this toy in a physical space, that limit seems okay. Whereas the neck, I feel like there maybe could have been something slightly different done so that he could look up a little more without having to crane his whole body back. Joytoy continues its nearly impeccable streak of making some high quality action figures with a richness in detail, with an eye towards articulation and function. And I honestly don't know if there is a company out there doing it better than Joytoy, marrying those different levels of building a really cool action figure. I'm not the biggest Warhammer 40k lore person in the world, and I really appreciate and I love the attention to detail that goes into crafting a figure of this beauty. There's something so satisfying, something so great about having a Joytoy figure work as well as it does, considering it is a more expensive toy. And yeah, like I said earlier, it is an absolute joy when a Joytoy toy arrives. A tongue twister if I ever heard one. So thank you to Joytoy for sending this guy out as a sample. I really love taking a look at these things, and I have not been disappointed yet. And if you love talking about action figures, if you like diving deep into just what makes an action figure tick, well, I talk a lot about those. We've got 6-inch scale, we've got every inch scale in between, pop culture collectibles, things like that. Also blasters, we talk about blasters, because blasters and action figures go hand in hand. And if you think action toys are just that cool as well, hit that subscribe button, maybe like this video or leave a comment, because I'd love to have you part of this growing channel. That's what I know about the Invictarus Suzerain Squad number 5. He's an Ultramarine. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.